Jimmy tried to shut him down with smug laughter and layers of sarcasm. Elon didn't flinch. He kept his composure, got ushered offstage, and then responded in a way that made the entire nation freeze and pay attention. Before we go further on this incredible story, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It was meant to be just another laid-back Thursday night in Los Angeles. The crowd at Jimmy Kimmel Live was already in the groove, laughter echoing from the opening monologue. The familiar rhythm of late-night comfort filled the studio, until Elon Musk walked in. He wasn't wearing anything flashy, just a simple dark blazer, a sharp black tie, and that ever-calm demeanor he wears like armor. The applause was loud, some of it enthusiastic, some laced with hesitation. There was a subtle undercurrent in the room. Elon gave a quick smile, nodded to Jimmy, and took his seat. Things started off light enough. Jimmy greeted him with a small jab about SpaceX delays, and Elon laughed. But then, the tone started to shift. Jimmy picked up his note cards with a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. So, what's it like owning a platform where conspiracy theories and memes are basically the official currency? The crowd laughed. Elon didn't. I think people are done with curated narratives, he replied, steady. They're craving truth, even if it's chaotic, and I'm okay with chaos. Jimmy leaned in, his grin tightening. Sure, but don't you worry that giving a megaphone to everyone means amplifying the worst voices. Elon tilted his head slightly. I'm more concerned about the people who believe certain voices shouldn't be heard at all. The room stilled. That was the moment. No dramatic soundtrack, no spotlight cue, just a charged silence. Jimmy blinked, trying to pivot, but instead of cooling the tension, he poured fuel on it. Come on, man, he said with performative sincerity. You've been cozying up to every political ideology out there. It's like you want to be everyone's hero without choosing a side. That struck something, not just in Elon, but in the audience too. The smile faded from Elon's face. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't move. He just looked at Jimmy, quiet for a second too long. I came here to talk tech, innovation, maybe even share a few things I've never said before. But if we're going to talk politics, let's not pretend you're sitting in neutral. You could feel it, the shift. A few people clapped. Others weren't sure what to do. Jimmy shrugged. Awkward now. Hey, I'm just asking questions. That's my job. And mine is to answer, Elon said, voice still even. But let's not call this a conversation when it's clearly an ambush. A murmur swept through the room. Jimmy's grin evaporated. For a moment, he looked honestly shaken. Well, he said, rising to his feet. If this isn't the interview you expected, you're welcome to leave. The crew hesitated. Elon didn't. That's the thing, he said as he stood. I did expect more. From you. From this show. Security moved in, not hostile, just hesitant. A stage manager whispered something to Elon. He gave a small, tired nod, then turned and walked off stage. The camera snapped back to Jimmy. He laughed nervously, glanced at the audience, and muttered, well, that escalated. But it didn't feel like a punchline. It felt like something had broken. Backstage, far from the lights, the cheers, the perfectly timed applause, something else was already happening. Something no one watching at home would see. The second Elon stepped behind curtain, the energy flipped. The hallway was colder, quieter. No audience, no jokes, just tension clinging to the air like static. A young production assistant, wearing a headset, tried to guide him toward a side exit. Elon didn't follow. Where's Kimmel? He asked, voice low but pointed. The assistant faltered. Probably in his dressing room, they said. I didn't ask what they said. Elon cut in, eyes steady. I asked where he is. A few nearby crew members froze. Elon turned a corner before anyone could stop him. A security guard caught up just as Jimmy stepped out of the green room, rubbing the back of his neck, still processing what had gone down. He wasn't expecting Elon. Not this soon. What now? Jimmy sighed, arms crossed. Elon didn't move closer. He stood his ground. You invited me here, then hijacked the narrative, then cut me off. Just admit it. Jimmy let out a short, dry laugh. Oh, please, don't play the victim. You've got billions fans, the whole world listening. What are you even upset about? It's not about me, Elon replied. It's about what you try to turn this into. You don't want dialogue. You want control. That landed hard. Nearby, a crew member half hidden behind a fake plant was holding up a phone, recording, not out of malice, just in case. The conversation wasn't loud. It wasn't a fight, but it was revealing, and it was real. You want to talk about free speech? Jimmy snapped back. All you've done is stir up chaos. That's not freedom. It's just noise. No, Elon replied, his voice steady and sharp. Noise is when you silence one side and call it balance. For a moment, The hallway fell into a heavy silence. The overhead lights buzzed softly. The tension was explosive, but was unmistakably real. Two men facing off, one backed by the machinery of Hollywood, the other by something far less predictable. Then Elon glanced around at the crew gathered nearby. You can cut this, you can spin it, or maybe, just this once, let people hear it exactly as it happened. And with that, he turned and walked away. No mic, no spotlight, only the soft echo of the exit door clicking shut behind him. But the silence didn't last. Just after midnight, a 90-second clip appeared on X. No edits, no captions, just raw footage. Elon, standing firm in that hallway, calling out the hypocrisy. Calm, measured, speaking like someone who didn't need a platform to be heard. It started quietly, a few thousand views. By sunrise, it had crossed 5 million. By midday, it had become unavoidable. Major headlines exploded across the internet. Some said, Elon melts down after Kimmel showdown. Others, unfiltered footage sparks national debate on free speech. But viewers weren't buying the spin. They had seen the footage themselves. They saw Elon remain composed. They saw Jimmy falter. They understood this wasn't about personal pride. It was about something bigger. About control, truth, and the cracks in the institutions we're told to trust. And the storm hadn't even truly started. Because what the public did with that clip next caught everyone off guard. By the time cafes in Portland started brewing and gas stations lit up across Ohio, the video had already swept across the country. That unpolished, shaky backstage clip had traveled further in 6 hours than any polished TV segment ever could. And people weren't just watching. They were responding, loudly. On X, the reaction was electric. The hashtag I stand with Elon surged to the top. But it wasn't just tech enthusiasts or Tesla loyalists. Teachers, veterans, moms in Kansas, mayors from small towns, people from every background were quoting that one line. You don't want conversation, you want control. That sentence became a rallying cry, an anthem overnight. Not everyone was on board. Of course, the internet never moves in a straight line. Hashtag Kimmel was right, and hashtag must meltdown started trending too. Critics called it manipulation. Some said Elon was playing the hero. Others rolled their eyes and labeled it another billionaire tantrum. But this time, something felt different. This wasn't a rehearsed PR move. There was no press release, no official statement from Elon. He didn't even post for 12 hours. And in that silence, the public filled the void. Clips from the show, the behind-the-scenes footage, reaction videos. They flooded every platform. TikToks dissected it frame by frame. Reddit threads analyzed Jimmy's facial tics. Instagram lit up with side-by-side comparisons of what aired versus what actually happened. And then the heavyweight stepped in. Dr. Leonora Hastings, a leading voice in media ethics from the University of Michigan, posted a detailed thread. She condemned Kimmel's approach as a deliberate abuse of platform power and warned, if late-night hosts become political executioners, public discourse collapses. Others piled on. Comedian Daryl Nye tweeted, I've roasted Musk before, but this time, Kimmel tried to turn him into a joke and got steamrolled by facts. Jimmy? Silent. No tweets. No Instagram story. No statement. ABC's PR team released a vague explanation. Segment ended earlier than planned due to time limits. No one bought it. Even TMZ called it the worst damage control since the celebrity birthday cake brawl. Then came the second wave. People who had felt voiceless for years. Indie journalists, scientists banned for controversial research. Small creators deplatformed without warning. Began reposting Elon's clip. They added their own commentary, their own experiences. Suddenly, the question wasn't do you agree with Elon? It was, what does it say about us if this kind of conversation isn't allowed? The conversation had hit something deeper, a raw nerve, a growing exhaustion with curated reality, with filtered dialogue, with the sense that the gatekeepers weren't just managing content, they were deciding who got to speak at all. And then, finally, Elon broke his silence. One post. No caption, just a still image from the clip, right as he says, let people hear it as it happened. It hit 35 million views in under 2 hours. But this wasn't the climax. It was just the opening act. Because while the internet argued and the media scrambled to reshape the narrative, Elon was preparing something else. Something that would make that backstage footage look like the prelude. And before it went live, he made a single phone call to someone no one expected. And that changed everything. 2 days after the clip shattered the internet, a quiet notification pinged on X. Elon Musk is live. No fanfare. No teaser trailer. Just a black screen that flickered before fading into view. Elon, seated in a plain aircraft chair. No flashy logos, no branding. Just a bookshelf behind him. lit dimly by a single desk lamp. He looked rested but resolute. No makeup, no polished monologue. Yet within 5 minutes, over 900,000 people had joined the stream. "All right," he said, voice steady. "I didn't want to do the usual media rounds or write some endless thread. I figured I'd just talk to people directly. That used to be normal." He paused. "I don't care that Jimmy didn't like my answers," he continued. "I care that he never wanted to hear them in the first place." Comments came in by the thousands, rolling fast, unread. But he wasn't here to perform. This wasn't showmanship. It was something else entirely. A public figure, unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetically real. And then came the twist. One by one, Elon introduced his guests, not influencers, not movie stars, but voices that had been dismissed, silenced, or shut out. Jenna Aoki, once a respected science journalist, blacklisted by 2 networks for pursuing the lab leak story. Christopher Darnell, a software engineer who lost major contracts after refusing to install censorship filters in his AI system. And Dr. Lionel Rivera, a former policy advisor who warned about digital suppression before it became a global concern. Each shared their truth, not through rants or outrage, but with quiet clarity. Personal accounts of being locked out of conversations. Not because they incited hate, but because they dared to ask the wrong questions. Elon leaned back. He didn't interrupt. He didn't steer the discussion. He just let it breathe. "Free speech," he said at last, "doesn't mean freedom from consequences. I get that, but lately, consequences feel a lot like erasure." He wasn't trying to sound profound. He was trying to be understood. Across America, people tuned in. Phones, TVs, laptops. Truckers in Nevada. Nurses on their break in Nebraska. College kids in Boise. Not everyone agreed with him, but they listened. Then, halfway through the stream, the unexpected happened. Elon shifted gears. "Why is it," he asked, "that the only way we reach the public is through late-night comedians or corporate anchors? Why are we still asking for permission to be heard?" The chat exploded. Stories poured in raw, unfiltered experiences of being shut down, misrepresented, or mocked. Some were dramatic, most weren't, but they all mattered. The stream became more than a broadcast. It turned into a living wall of testimony. And then, without warning, the screen split. A familiar face appeared in the corner. Not from a mainstream channel, but from the rising tide of independent voices. Arya Salter, an investigative journalist from Tulsa, who'd quietly built an audience on truth-telling, not sensationalism. "Elon," she said, calm and clear, "I've been watching. I don't think this is just a moment. I think it's a shift. If people can speak without filters, what does that mean for platforms like mine? Or yours?" Elon glanced at her, then directly into the camera. "It means they'll try to shut it down. But it also means we build something new." By the time the live stream ended nearly 2 hours later, over 23 million people had watched some part of it. No ads, no edits, no approval required. But what happened next didn't stay online, because Hollywood had been watching, and they weren't about to let this go unchecked. The very next morning, Los Angeles buzzed like a disturbed beehive. Studio execs from Burbank to Culver City held emergency meetings. Emails were flying, phones ringing with a quiet kind of urgency. It wasn't just that Elon had gone rogue. It was that millions had followed. Hollywood doesn't take kindly to losing control. The first blow came discreetly. Editorials rolled out in lockstep. Mainstream outlets calling the stream reckless, dangerous, a playground for misinformation. National talk shows echoed the same refrains. The coordination was impossible to ignore, but it wasn't working. Because somewhere in Santa Clara, a freelance producer leaked screenshots, internal emails from ABC, debating whether to pull every Elon-related clip from their online archives. Not just the Kimmel footage. Everything. It looked like a digital purge. And people noticed. Then came the fallout. Within 48 hours, 3 major sponsors quietly pulled their ads from Jimmy Kimmel Live. 1. A century-old insurance company based in Des Moines issued a simple public statement. "We support dialogue, not censorship." The tide wasn't turning. It had already turned. Kimmel finally broke his silence the following night. He opened his show with a stiff grin and a fresh batch of jabs aimed at Elon. "So, apparently free speech now means billionaires scold you for not liking their tweets," he quipped, staring straight into the lens. But the audience didn't laugh, not like before. Something had shifted. Clips of the monologue hit social media almost instantly, but the comments weren't what his team expected. Thousands questioned the tone, the timing, the punchlines. "Where's the joke?" one user wrote. "All I see is damage control." Meanwhile, Elon said nothing. Not a tweet, not a quote, just silence. But others stepped forward in his place. Arya Salter, the independent journalist who had spoken on Elon's live stream, saw her following triple in just 4 days. Invitations poured in, podcast panels, collaborative streams, not from corporate networks, but from real people, starving for conversations that weren't polished to death. And she wasn't alone. Dozens of once ignored voices were suddenly rising. Accounts that had long been overlooked were now being amplified. Platforms like Rumble and Locals reported a surge in new signups, driven by people tired of speaking through a maze of filters and legal red tape. Back in Los Angeles, whispers were starting to leak. Industry insiders, speaking anonymously to media blogs, revealed what many had long suspected. A veteran writer's assistant on a major streaming series said, "This isn't even about Elon. It's about someone finally calling it out, that everything behind the curtain is choreographed. If he can't say it live without being cut off, what chance do the rest of us have?" The quote went viral, but the knockout came when a former ABC executive who had worked directly with Kimmel's production team posted a brutal expose on LinkedIn. She laid it bare, how producers were coached to gently steer guests away from sensitive views. "It's not censorship in a classic sense," she wrote. "It's a script, and if you don't follow it, you vanish." Within hours, the post was picked up by The Hill, TechCrunch, and The Daily Caller. The cracks were showing. Hollywood could take a punchline, but it couldn't handle the mirror Elon had just held up. And no matter how many headlines they published or how much spin they pushed, they couldn't stop what had already begun. Millions of people were asking themselves how long they'd been watching a version of reality built to keep them comfortable. While the entertainment machine scrambled to regain footing, Elon was working on something else. Something no one, not even his loudest detractors, saw coming. 5 days after the live stream, he reappeared, not in front of a lens, but behind a whiteboard in a quiet conference room in Austin, Texas. No broadcast, no lead-in, just a tweet. "If the old platforms don't want real dialogue, we'll build our own." Most people assumed it was metaphorical. They were wrong. Hours later, quiet murmurs began leaking from inside Tesla and X headquarters. Elon had formed a new internal team. Software engineers, digital strategists, independent journalists. Not yes men, not influencers. Just people tired of being filtered and ready to build something freer. By day 7, it had a name. OpenFrame, not a platform, a framework. A tool set that allowed anyone, creators, reporters, everyday citizens, to broadcast open conversations, raw and unfiltered. No shadow bans, no algorithmic favoritism, no back-end throttling. Just voice. Speak and be heard, or not. Simple. Skeptics rolled their eyes. Another app, they scoffed. It'll flop like Parler or True Social. But they were missing the point. This wasn't left versus right. It wasn't tech versus media. It had become something deeper. People versus filters. Authenticity versus orchestration. And Elon didn't sell it. He didn't pitch. He just let it happen. Launch day arrived. Arya Salter went live first. No makeup, no script, just her phone and a personal story. She spoke of being told once by an editor to strip the emotion from her articles because it made readers uncomfortable. Within minutes, over 600,000 were tuned in. Then came Dr. Rivera, answering questions about digital censorship and the slow decay of open debate. Then Christopher Darnell streamed a raw, 2-hour session showing how companies had pressured to program AI away from unpopular truths, even when the data supported them. Each broadcast was different, but they shared one thing. Nothing was trimmed, nothing was fluffed. It was real, and it was messy, and people loved it. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel Live suffered its lowest ratings in over 8 years. Sponsors grew uneasy. Segments fell off. The timing was flat. The laughter forced. The engine had taken a hit, and this time it sputtered. And yet Elon never gloated. Never once mentioned Kimmel again. His silence said more than 1,000 soundbites could. Instead, he posted a single sentence to X, pinned to the top of his profile. "You can silence the mic, but not the message." It caught fire. Thousands shared it. Artists turned it into murals. Teens wore it on t-shirts. College debate teams used it to open meetings. Some hailed Elon as a symbol. Others accused him of using the chaos to gain control. But whatever the opinion, left, right, or undecided, one thing was clear. People were watching again, listening again, speaking again. In Nashville, a retired librarian began hosting a weekly stream on OpenFrame, reading banned books aloud and explaining why their words still mattered. In Fresno, a former union organizer started holding open dialogues with workers who felt abandoned by both sides of the aisle. And in Springfield, Missouri, a single father launched a Q&A stream about mental health. No script, no agenda, just honest conversation with strangers who needed someone to listen. This wasn't viral buzz anymore. It was momentum. For the first time in a long time, people weren't being told what to believe. They were figuring out together, in real time, in public, and out of that unfiltered, messy, beautiful chorus of voices, something real began to take form. 1 week passed, then another. Jimmy Kimmel Live went on its scheduled hiatus, but whispers from inside the studio painted a different picture. The energy had shifted. Writers were uneasy. The laughter felt rehearsed. Executives pushed for lighter material, but viewers had moved on. They weren't tuning into punchlines anymore. They were watching something new take root. Open Frame crossed 10 million active users in under 3 weeks. And not just in the US. Conversations were popping up across Germany, Brazil, South Africa, South Korea. People talking in their own languages, on their own terms, without intermediaries or filters. Open Frame didn't claim to deliver truth. It didn't pretend to have all the answers. It simply handed the microphone back to the public, and somehow that was enough. Elon still hadn't done another major interview. No press junkets. No book rollout. Just occasional post. Simple, quiet reminders encouraging people to think for themselves. Then, late one night, without warning, he went live again. Same chair, same black t-shirt, same bookshelf dimly lit behind him. No dramatic lighting. Just a faint hum of passing cars outside the window. "I'm not here to be right," he said. "I'm here because I'm done pretending that anyone knows what's best for everyone else." He leaned forward. "I'm tired of shows that say they want honesty, but fall apart the moment a real answer shows up. I'm tired of pretending speech is free when it only flows in one direction." He paused, looked directly into the lens. "I'm not a hero. I'm not flawless, but I'm not afraid to speak. And neither should you be." No outro music, no branding, just a quiet cut to black. And that clip, not the confrontation on Kimmel, not the viral live stream, not even Open Frame's explosive growth. That moment became the one that stuck. It spread faster than any trending hashtag. It played in classrooms, in Sunday services, in barbershops, in family group chats. Not because Elon was perfect, but because he wasn't, and he still chose to speak. The impact hit everyone differently. For some, it was a reminder to keep asking hard questions, even if the answers made people uncomfortable. For others, it was a lesson in courage, being willing to stand alone if that's what truth required. But for most, it boiled down to this. When someone tries to silence you, don't yell, speak louder. Not with rage, not with venom, but with truth, even if your voice shakes. We live in a time where volume is mistaken for value, where noise gets rewarded and quiet honesty gets buried. But this moment, what happened with Elon, with Jimmy, with the millions watching, it pulled something back. It reminded us that real conversation isn't neat. It's not comfortable. It's not curated, but it's necessary. And maybe, just maybe, the way we begin to fix the world is by talking like we're allowed to. If the story stirred something in you, if it made you pause, even for a second, don't forget to hit subscribe. Stick around, because the mix's still on. Not just here, not just now, but for good. If you love this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with someone you know will love it too.